question posed this week was, how has positive behavioral intervention supports, PBIS, how has it not helped with disproportionality, and how has it actually contributed to it? And through the reading, there's a lot of information about how PBIS has been beneficial in some ways, but also how it has been destructive in others. One of the positives of PBIS was that it incorporates behavior intervention plans and functional behavior assessments, which helps schools manage their overall behaviors and decrease expulsion. However, the book also stated in the Vulgarides text that studies have shown that Black and Latino students were actually more likely than white students and their white peers to receive a suspension or expulsion for minor infractions as a result of PBIS. One of the conclusions I came to from the text was that even with PBIS, most schools are more focused on their overall compliance with IDEA and therefore, meeting all of the things that they're supposed to be doing for the positive behavior interventions, that they're so hyper focused on meeting this compliance that they're not making sure that all students are receiving what they need, and they're definitely not focused on the equal representation of all students. The focus, like I said, is more on compliance rather than the representation of multiple different ethnic groups, and the school's focusing on how they can really help all the different kids and how staff can make connections with kids of different ethnic backgrounds. In the book, they talked about how in Sunderville, people feel like they're walking on eggshells when they discipline a student. They're hesitant to discipline students because they don't want to break any rules with IDEA and therefore PBIS, and additionally, they don't want any of their disciplinary measures to be considered racially targeted. Sunderville claimed that the state is really only interested in compliance with IDEA and not really focused on the issues that are present with disproportionality. In Sunderville, it resulted in staff hyper-focusing on compliance with meeting IDEA requirements rather than how to connect with the students of their varying backgrounds. In the Vulgarides text in Garytown, they talked about how the educators in the school were constrained by the center leadership team, and the center leadership team was more focused on how they could be compliant rather than how to address issues of disproportionality. The district would tell the teachers that if the teachers couldn't tell them why the kids are misbehaving, then they really can't do anything about it. And that's really upsetting because we don't always know why students are misbehaving, and when you look at that, it very well could be that the students are misbehaving because they don't feel like staff are really making a connection with them, and that staff aren't trying to recognize them as their individuals and their different varying backgrounds, and because they're so hyper-focused on meeting IDEA requirements and really just trying to be compliant, that the students can tell, and therefore that's why they're misbehaving. However, the district seems to not really care about that, and it just becomes such a problem that in theory, the positive behavior intervention supports is such a good idea in theory, and that it really does focus on behavior intervention plans, and it does focus on FBAs, and yet this hypervigilance and this intense obsession with having to meet compliance results in it really just not being effective, and in fact, it puts more attention on disproportionality rather than addressing the issue.